Welcome to the BFF Report. I'm your host, Mike B.A.K. Phony, and today we're going to be talking about Star Wars The Old Republic. This is part 2 of 3, and last week I asked you guys to pick below, right in the comment section, which one you guys wanted the most, and it was literally like super close. The problem is I actually had to go through and count because I did a Control F for PvE, and then a Control F for PvP, and people were like, don't talk about PvE, talk about PvP, and so I threw all the numbers off, so I had to go back and count them all by hand, and overall you guys wanted PvE by like 3%. It was a very close one. So today we're gonna be taking a look at flashpoints, but first, I've been thinking a lot about the last episode where I made mention of the linear questing system. I don't quite feel that I've made things as clear as I could have. You see, I wanna make sure that everybody knows up front what they can expect getting into SWTOR. It's kind of what I do. After you level one character to 50 on one faction, you may be inclined to level another character of another class on the other faction, right? You want to experience maybe two different stories, and this would give you two somewhat unique leveling experiences in that the quests would all be different, but the scenery would still, be the same after a certain point, which is obviously understandable to some degree as there's always some kind of shared geographic between factions in every MMO. This is also where world PvP comes from, right? But what about after that? I mean, you could level another character purely through PvP, right? Okay, so let's say you decide to do that. Now you have 3 high-level characters. Beyond this, you are done playing the game except for what endgame content there is. Now what could this possibly mean? Well, since class quests alone won't get you to level 50, you'll likely only play each alt till about 20 or so, or until you get to Balmora for the umpteenth time. Barring the possibility, of course, that you fall in love with your 4th character class, you will more than likely not go back to grind out the remaining 3 levels, almost completely consisting of content you've already done at least once. Do you see now what I mean by 2 to 3 max level characters? Now I know some of you fanboys are fuming over this observation and are probably destroying your keyboard formulating your well-versed and thought-out argument, and I'm gonna let you finish, but I already have the only answer you're going to need. It's just like WoW. Take that metaphorically, okay? But it's true, and to be honest, in games like WoW, most players didn't have 3 max level characters in the first 6 months or so after launch anyways, and 90% of the people that say otherwise are full of shit because they had 1 main and maybe 2 ults that stopped at 57 in Eastern Plaguelands because that place sucked. The biggest difference though is that Tor pushes story everywhere, whereas in other MMOs, story exists but it's so easily cast aside due to its modest presentation when compared to Star Wars cinematics and dialogue. So if you came here just for the story, then you will fairly quickly run out of unique content to absorb. And this brings us to today's topic, flashpoints. You see, this deep into the MMO industry game, developers know, or at least they should know, that players who have already experienced high-level content in competing games will look at their initial instance experience as a reflection of what endgame will be like. It's just gaming nature. The good news is that Star Wars does a pretty decent job of delivering this in its first 2 flashpoints available to low-level players. And the one we're going to be focusing on more today is going to be the Esseles on the Republic side. Reason being is that we've beat the Black Talon to death with a billion damn videos. We all know that everyone's gonna be rolling Sith Inquisitors at launch anyway, so we wanted to show some love to the soon-to-be forever alone Republic. For those that are unfamiliar, flashpoints are story-driven instances with bosses in the whole 9. They are designed for up to 4 people, but can be done with the help of companions and only 2 people. Spoiler alert from here on out, by the way. The Esseles story starts off with your character just hitching a ride when suddenly a wild Imperial battlecruiser ship appears. They make it pretty clear that they are looking for a very specific Jedi, and then he says, "Hey, we're coming through the airlock." No, seriously guys, it's the airlock we were coming through. I mean, if you really wanted to stop us, like if I were you, I'm betting that I would probably end up going to the airlock, which is where we're coming through. So we all, being the dumbasses that we are, go straight to the airlock. Of course, on the way there, you're gonna run into your very first boss. This guy, Lieutenant Isaac, is actually very easy to deal with. The biggest pain in the ass part of this boss is that he keeps spawning ads. Keep the ads under control, and you have no problem finishing this guy off. Following this, you go into another dialogue scene in which the responses chosen are determined by the role done by the group. You see this in the lower left corner. I was a complete dick the entire flashpoint, but most of the time, my do-good counterparts kept overriding my decisions. Here, the Jedi in question shows up and tells us that this was all a diversion. Oh, who'd have thought? Now we have to head down to engineering through a path of pods smashing through the ship's hull and dropping off a few trash mobs along the way. We get there, and this is where it can potentially get pretty good. We have a decision to make. You see, we need to get to the bridge, and it's on lockdown, so we can run all over the ship hacking computers, or we could just throw a lever right here and it'll reset the system and get us access. The upside of throwing the switch is that you get to watch everybody in the engineering department get sucked out into space, and it's great. The downside, of course, is that everybody on my team is a f***ing bleeding heart, and I get outvoted for this stuff every single time, forcing us to go the long way.
You can't send these people to their deaths, not when there's an alternative.
Once you get to the bridge, you face off with the next boss, Iron Fist. Amongst other abilities, he has a charge, a knockback, and a channeled attack that will require you to stay relatively mobile. or in my case, over the top mobile because I like to PvE like I PvP, running in circles and beating up my spacebar. Following this, there is some story, then a long trip from your ship to the enemy ship, all the while sifting through a billion sets of trash packs, a couple story items here and there. By the way, all this stuff is all quest objectives and all that, so you're not just like mindlessly going through and killing things. And then you finally get to the final boss area. Once you get here, you have to deactivate the tractor beam by disabling 2 power generators, but you have to do them simultaneously or else they will just error out. After this, it spawns a bonus boss that you will get to after the first boss I'm about to show you right here. Now, this is also part of a quest, so you only get the bonus boss when you do the quest items. So I'm not sure if you go back to repeat this, if you'll end up respawning that boss every time, or somebody actually has to have that quest on hand in order to spawn that boss. Now this first guy, the ISS-7 Guardian Battle Droid, has a few basic abilities, but the one you absolutely have to be aware of is his knockback, because he will knock you off the platform and you will not be happy about this. I'm not sure if this is an intended mechanic or something they will like end up fixing later on. I personally hope they keep it in, as it kind of forces people to pay attention to what they're doing. After this, you're told that you need to find an escape route, but we're gonna go ahead and go over here and kill this bonus boss over here that spawned because we want loot. And this guy, simple. He does an AoE attack that he goes into, I think it's called Overcharge, and you can't miss it, right? He's gonna stop for a second, he's gonna turn purple with lightning all over the place, and he's gonna do AoE damage to all the melee in the area, but just keep your distance and you'll be all right. When you finally get back to your ship, you have 2 options. You can either fly onwards to Coruscant and continue questing, or you can actually go back to the fleet ship where you initially came from and started the flashpoint and turn in commendations or hang out, go to the cantina, or doing whatever you want to do. But we're finally done with the Esseles. Now, regarding the Black Talon, I ran this as a healer, and I could tell you flat out that I was doing considerably more DPSing than healing. This could be because of one of 2 reasons. One, it's because with 3.5 DPS, we were pretty much just annihilating everything before it could even do any significant damage, allowing us to simply heal ourselves in between fights. Or 2, it's because I only had 1 freaking heal spell. One thing is for sure though, if you want a good challenge, try running these flashpoints with just one other person and just micro your companions around. We had a couple crybabies that GG'd out after 1 wipe on the flashpoint's last boss, and we decided to just tackle it ourselves. The combo was perfect though. Him being a DPS with his companion being also some kind of utility DPS, my companion being a beast of a tank, and me with my 1 fucking heal button. We were ultimately successful, and thanks to the lack of opposition, I got to kill the fat man at the end with, you guessed it, more purple lightning. Alright, so like I said, these flashpoints are kind of an indication as what we could expect in, endgame. As a matter of fact, one thing I didn't mention was that these flashpoints are also available in a much harder mode when you get to endgame. It's very similar to like World of Warcraft, how when you get to the very end, you could go and do dead mines again in heroic mode, right? So I'm kind of curious, just what you guys have seen from the Black Talon videos, which are all over the dang internet, and the dang internet, and also the Esseles video that I just did today. Esseles, lesbian, whatever. What do you guys think about, their proper endgame? They have Taral 7 or something. There's all kinds of different videos that are being put out all over the place about their operations, which is actually I think there's 16 player instances. So let me know what you guys think about their endgame. I know there's a lot of you guys who are some hardcore PvEers. Comments below at AK Mike B on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all that stuff. And next week PvP.